What's going on? Welcome back, everybody, to the House of Nerd Show. Today, we've got for you a review of the graphic novel Parallel from writer Jason Douglas and artist Adam Ferris, with lettering by Justin Birch. This book is from Source Point Press. We've been, lucky enough to be handed a review copy of this. So, we're here today to talk a little bit about this book, which is nominated, by the way, guys, two times, right? Two Ringo Award nominations this year. The first one being for Best Single Issue Story, and the second for Best Writer. So congratulations to the creative team on that. Just to give you guys a brief synopsis of what this book is about. So there's a main character by the name of Landon. He is experiencing a quarter-life crisis. The decision he made in his early 20s to abandon his dreams of music has resulted in a life mired in stagnation, depression, self-doubt, and a loveless marriage.
Thanks.
I think very relatable there. Hopefully not to everybody, but so when the voices start and the visions appear, Landon fears for his sanity, but he is nevertheless tempted and awoken to a unique possibility. A parallel version of himself is offering a chance to change it all. His fate was sealed, and now his destiny awaits. What price would you be willing to pay for a second chance? Now, before we get into the discussion properly here, we just do want to give everybody a bit of a heads up. This book does deal with some mature subject matter, mental health awareness, issues, topics on suicide awareness. If you have any concerns with that, maybe just a heads up that we will be talking about these subjects in regards to this book here. So with that being said, Steve, Lauren, we had the opportunity to read this book. Well, what are your guys' thoughts?
I'll let Lauren go first.
Sure.
So one, I actually really love this cover. I think some people might think it's too simple. I think it's perfect, especially once you read it. I guess I'll talk about the story first. It started off kind of interesting, and I wasn't sure where it was going at first. Because actually, believe it or not, before I read a review copy of this, I did not read the synopsis, so I wasn't completely sure what I was getting into. So I kind of came in with a fresh mind, and holy shit, there's a lot, kind of like Sergio was, warning y'all about earlier. There's a lot of metaphors here. There's a lot of stuff going on with talking about suicide, and even reading the synopsis, the concept of what a second chance means in this story is very different than, let's say what second chance means in Second Chances, another book we've talked about on the show before. I really liked how real this felt, how relatable it was, especially as somebody as myself who has struggled with mental health stuff and such, like depression, anxiety. That's just my beginning thoughts. I think it does a lot of things really well that I didn't expect that it could do.
Right on. Steve.
Yeah.
Opening thoughts on Parallel.
Opening thoughts. I kind of agree with Lauren in a lot of ways. The opening, it was kind of interesting. But yeah, I would say the subject matter is definitely one where I don't know if it's for everyone. I enjoyed the concept. I'm always a sucker for parallel stuff like that, like parallel dimensions, alternate dimensions, weird fringe shit like that. I'm always a sucker for that. So you put me in a story where there's possible alternate dimensions and universes and multiverses and all that kind of stuff, and I am there. I'm there for that, like 100%. So I really dug the idea that it's some. Let's be honest, it's a guy my age at this point, like early 30s, who is regretting the choices that they made in their early 20s, because, as we all know, decisions you make will affect yourself later on. And I think this story is one where the main character regrets a lot of their choices. And I feel like that's relatable for a lot of people, especially when they're dealing with these quarter life crises where, nobody has the answers. right? Your life is your life, and the decisions you make are those that you make. Yeah. And there's no going back, right? So this book kind of deals with the concept of, well, what if I could live a different life?
What if, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Marvel, love us again, please. Yeah,
That's
I like
great.
what you said about the parallel dimension, because that's actually something that we could talk about too, and maybe people can debate, right? As what is this parallel? Is it the voice in his head, like a hallucination? Is it another dimension? I mean, there's a lot of different allegories that could go with that, I feel like. Yeah, that's cool, Steve. I like that point.
Yeah, even if our good buddy Mason were on here from Comics and Crosses, I'm sure he could take a spin and say, it's possibly a serpent speaking in his ear. There's so many different elements for this book and this story, and that ambiguity I really enjoy with the ending on what actually is it? What actually is happening? Is it in his head? Is it real? It's all up for interpretation and how you feel like you want to appreciate the story, and how you feel like you see the story as going. So like my interpretation is probably different from Serge's, and it's probably different from Lauren's, but I like that aspect of that ambiguity is also kind of adding to the story, because it's your perception of what's happening.
Well, that's one of the great things about this book, Steve, is just the questions it brings up and how this story, it can be interpreted. And, if you talk to the three of us, I'm sure we all have a different interpretation of what exactly is happening. And like you, I'm a sucker for like parallel universe stories and branching realities, so it's got a bit of a sci-fi nature to it, but also it's just asking some really questions that is very relatable. I think most of us can relate to questioning the decisions we make in life. What if, what could be, and especially, I think at any age, really, but with this particular character, Landon, he's I think it was 27, 28. So here he's presented with a vision or an opportunity to see what his life could be if he had made some different decisions in the past. We got a character here who's really he's unhappy, loveless marriage, that wife of his, piece of work.
Yeah.
And I think one of the questions, or one of the, it's important, I think one of the messages is, who we choose, to live these lives. We got this one life here. Who are we sharing it with?
Yeah.
You want to be with someone who's supportive, who's gonna push you.
Also, like, the story's about change too, because she wasn't like that when you originally see the flashbacks. She wasn't how they were when they met, same as he isn't how he was when they met. On that note, I do want to show off this page specifically because in terms of font, I'm a font guy. The fact I don't know if anyone picked this up, but I think it's hilarious. The fact that the font's used to tell you, how many years has gone by, it's the same as the meme font from all those different memes, like all of them, right? It's that bold with that black stripe. It's the exact same. So I kind of find it funny that they're using a meme font for his life, at which point it's kind of a joke to him. Like he doesn't feel like he's living. He doesn't feel like it's his life. I kind of find it ironic to use that kind of font in such a bland bland scenario for him.
Yeah.
And
I didn't catch that. That's okay.
Yeah, I didn't either with the the meme font there, but I like that you brought this page up as well, because and just the whole she's also, him and her both aren't the same as they started out. And I think that's a conundrum with real relationships that makes this feel very, again, just real and honest, is that, maybe, she's the, easy one to pick out as the bad guy. And maybe she is the main one, obviously, right? Like, she's the one that's still kind of neglecting him and stuff. But in the end of the day, he still chose to stay. He could have easily left. It wasn't like she coerced him into staying even or anything. He could have left. And it's hard. Like, that's a hard thing to say. It's not blaming anybody. It's just, damn, it's reality. And this actually reminds me now to think about there's a musical called The Last 5 Years, which tells the story of a relationship from both the woman and the guy's perspectives, but they tell it through different time periods. So like the girl says it throughout the musical from the end of the relationship to the beginning, and the dude tells it the normal way. And it's very interesting because they have a similar thing of everything started out great and then everything fell apart because one person got involved in their career so much and neglected the other person because they went on in life while the other person couldn't become as successful as them. And that's a really hard thing, is what you do when your partner has all this success and they leave over here and you can't grow with them.
Yeah.
Like that's hard.
Also, what is it like when your spouse, who kind of looks down upon you, is your boss?
It's a weird dynamic.
That is a very strange dynamic.
Can't be an easy relationship. What's the saying? You know, don't mix business with pleasure.
Yeah,
money and blood don't mix. You know, so I mean, just a difficult dynamic, and you could see he's at the point in his life he's really just kind of he's down on life, man. He's clearly unhappy. And then you have this alternate reality version of him. We're not entirely sure what it exactly is going on. Perhaps it's even a voice in his head showing him what could be, and then begs the question, how far are you willing to go, to have this second chance at life, right?
Well, oh, sorry. I just got really excited because when you talk about the second chance, that part really fascinates me in particular because the way that this, voice in his head or this other dimensional being, or to me, that voice really kicks in when he's finally hit his lowest of the low in his depression. You can tell that. I think that's pretty clear. And, he's starting to get the suicidal. It's a different take on suicidal ideation that I don't see discussed ever, which is instead of, oh, I feel so bad, I'm just want to end and get out of the pain. But in this one, it's, hey, look, if you get out of this life now, you can be in a better life. It's not just about stopping the pain, it's about finding this. And that's a really tricky thing to talk about, especially, it's very hard. And it was interesting to see that played out. And I think that Jason Douglas with the writing did a fantastic job writing that very realistically while still not glorifying it. It was really well done to me. But yeah, so the voice in his head is telling him like, hey, walk into traffic and look at the life you can get if you do that, dude.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Like,
Steve, what did you guys, Lauren, what did you guys think about the artwork? So this is didn't mention earlier, black and white. You can see here from the what did you think of it? I know, and I'm asking you in particular, but because I know you're not always a fan of black and white.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I enjoy the art for what it was. I like how stylistic it is. It reminded me of some of the other books that I have read. But I think it being black and white, I think it not having any color, it affects my appreciation for it. I think because I just keep imagining like what this would look like, because we do have the cover, like we at least see what an image could look like if all of it was colored, and I think it would add a lot to it. Like if it was just like a watercolor, I imagine like just the color of this would be just a faded watercolor over top. I just think it would add so much to the emotions and the tone of this book. I like the art as it is. The shading of it's really well done. You can see it really feels like it's pencil shaded. It does give a different texture for everything, but I think that added thing of just a watercolor or some kind of color, just maybe a simple tone, would have, I think, elevated it a little bit further for me.
That's interesting you say that, because for me, the black and white, the gray tones, it adds to the feeling of this existential dread,
right?
That Landon is going through.
Yeah,
it's this crisis, right? Mental health crisis, this just almost how
it kind of makes it a metaphor, because he kind of sees the situation as black and white in a way.
Bleak.
And that's what I was going to go to, is that I agree with both of you, because I agree, Sergio, that most of this book should have been black and white, and it works very well. I love the shading as well. Black and white doesn't work for me if the shading's not done right. I'm learning that. It needs very good shading for me to like it. And this does a good job with it. But I think I think the ending would have been much more powerful if all of a sudden that last page was in color.
Like a
because
burst
that would
of
give
color?
even more questions. Because it's like, if you guys have read the book The Giver, where they live in a world without color, and then at the end of that story, he finds a way to bring color into the world, and what that means with all these different analogies and allegories and stuff. Imagine, based on the ending of this book, right, like, which is very interpretive, right? We don't know exactly what it means. What if at the end of the book, based on what happens, he sees color? What does that mean? It's kind of like with the book Bliss we've talked about. Did he actually find the bliss that voice was telling him he could find? You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. Even having something like that could add to the story too, because it could add to. Although I do wonder if having color in one spot and not in another spot could kind of sway a certain interpretation of the story.
Thank you. Yeah, so that was just about that was my point. I think if you get to that final page there, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You know, the ending, I think it's definitely open up for interpretation. It's a little bit ambiguous. I think maybe if you were to add color to it, it might sway, you know, where the story is trying to tell, versus leaving it as is. You know, it keeps with that kind of, it lends to the ambiguity.
Sure.
Though if they use the color just sparsely, for instance, like on this page here, if they had the heart monitor, if that line was green or something, like little bits of the story, I think could be colorized. Whereas the rest of it could still be black and white to kind of convey the whole, you know, life is gray. Decisions aren't necessarily black and white, and his depression or whatever he's feeling right now does make him feel like it is very much so a black and white scenario for him. I think the book could be elevated by at least some color, though.
I think towards the ending, like if you see fake color slowly coming into it, but yeah, kind of like you said, I was thinking that. And also color, I think, is important because one thing that's very confusing with depression and stuff is that, and very dangerous, is that when people, so a lot of people get depressed, and a lot of people think the hardest time is when somebody's feeling really, really sad, you know, the stereotypical depression we see. But actually the worst time often when somebody's depressed is when all of a sudden they get this huge upswing, because now they have the energy to do things. And so I think adding the color at the end wouldn't necessarily sway it one way or the other if you understand that concept of, oh my God, when somebody gets a huge upswing in their energy and they've been depressed, that can mean they've, you know, carried out an act they've been planning or something. And anyways, yeah, I think regardless, it would have been interesting if they added time in the color, but either way, the artwork's fantastic with the black and white and all the shading.
It's great. Yeah, and we don't have a screenshot of it, but you know which page I enjoyed? It just where the story was kind of explaining, or I guess Landon's alternate version was explaining about the branching realities and you know, the parallel lines and then the intersecting, you know, the points and all that.
And that was a theme throughout the whole story.
You know, just such a simple concept, and like, you know, how the narrator explains, you know, really a fourth grade mathematical kind of you know, things that we learn, but it lays out the story and explains the story just fantastically, you know, simple, but also, you know, just complex in the sense that so many possibilities, right? I love it. I very, very much enjoyed this this book. I did want to talk about that last page though. So, spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't read Parallels yet. You know, we are going to go into detail about this. You know, this ending here. So we find Landon seemingly, or I guess that's what the question is did he die at the end? You know, he was. He walks into the music store, and then you see the alternate reality version of him. And then what was curious and what really threw me off was you see his wife in the reflection on the door. Yeah. So I didn't know how to take that. I mean, I thought it was, before that page, I thought it was clear that, you know, he died, right?
I took it as the other way.
Okay, so Steve, tell me how you interpreted that.
So I interpreted the ending so that the reflections were stuff that wasn't real at that time, right? The other life, whatever that he saw, that it wasn't real, right? Just like when you see a reflection in a window, or whatever, you see through it. It no longer is tangible. It's no longer concrete in reality, right? He sees right through it in a way, you know, as a metaphor, really. He sees through that life that he couldn't have, or he didn't have, or didn't want. He saw through it. And same way with the wife. She was on a reflection too. In that same vein, to me, I took it as he saw through his life that he just had in a way. It wasn't tangible anymore. She left him. He didn't really want that anymore. All the stuff that was tied to her in terms of like that job that he had, all of the stuff that was making him depressed, he saw through it, and it's no longer concrete for him. And then the ending I just see is, you know, him taking steps to give him the life that he now wants. So it's not about like going back or anything. It's just about the fact that he doesn't see it as a solid anymore. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now again. Just so I have it fresh in my head. And you look at, you know, the voice telling him, he's looking at the pills. The voice tell me, you know, let go of your pain, embrace everything you want. And yes, yes, all of it. And you see the pill jar be empty. But here's the thing. You don't see him take the pills.
I think he's dumping them.
He tossed them. Yep. He dumped them down the toilet. He wrote a note to Claire saying he was, you know, he doesn't, you know, you see here, he says, I don't love myself, can't see how. So he's probably leaving. And then she goes home and finds the notes, because if he had killed himself, most likely his body would have been there or in the bathroom or something, or a body would have been found. But in the end, he also had some really nice note with a parallel talk you talked about, where it's like discussing the 4th grade lesson, where it says it is never too late to wipe the board clean and start over. And so I think just off that note, I'm with Steve. I think it ended on a very positive note, surprisingly, even though at the last second we're like, oh God, he's gonna take those pills. He picked himself up, which is really great, actually, because, you know, this overall book is so intense and, you know, depressing that, it's an interesting choice there.
I like that because
the shaving adds to it too. The fact that he gets clean shaven. Yes. You wouldn't my interpretation of that is you wouldn't become clean shaven if you're going to off yourself, if you're going to go through with it, right? He wouldn't care anything about his appearance if he was leaving for a different life. Okay. That's how I see it.
And you know what? Looking at it now again, I didn't catch. So he's not his alternate self, right? With the long hair, the rock star. No. You know, he's all clean shaven, clean cut, you know. So yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head there, you know. He didn't take the pills, maybe he dumped them, and then he's making the choice now to live his life differently, to take things in control into his own hands, you know, rather than perhaps blaming it on his wife or just you know, fate or destiny, right? He's making that choice, you know. You know, I saw, you know, however whether it was, you know, really, you know, just a vision in his head or you know, some kind of mental health, you know, things going on, or if it was really, you know, in an alternate dimension, you know, point being, he's making that choice to, hey, I'm changing, you know, I'm turning my life around. Right? Which the first time I read it, I thought, you know what, damn, man, you know, he's taking that leap into, because, you know, the bottle's empty, and then you have the cop at the door. So I'm thinking, you know, if there's a cop in the entrance to his apartment or house there, then, you know, something, you know, he's committed suicide, right? But so I think that maybe that's the only thing that's kind of like, why is the cop there then?
Well, because to me it was the detective was with his ex-wife. Like I saw that they had an affair, and they
were sleeping together.
And so he was there for her.
Yeah, the last panel before it switched from her and the detective back to Landon, it was him like getting all up on her, or reversed. I can't remember who was all up on who, but like they were very close, and I was like, that means they've slept together, easily.
Well, I think, for sure. I think that it definitely was heavily insinuated that they were having an affair, and something was going on. But man, that's great that you guys picked up on that, because I think you guys are onto something there.
I think I think for the most part, this story is all about having an uplifting ending. I think the overall theme of the book doesn't work if that very end is so ambiguous. because you want it to be uplifting, especially when you're dealing with so many dark themes throughout it. You don't want to read such a dark story for it to end in such a dark way, especially in something that's so realistic. Like how people
though.
It could
I
have,
mean, there are stories that do that, and they're very well, critically liked and respected for what they are. Absolutely. But yeah, so I mean, I guess that's why I was surprised he still had an uplifting ending to it, because I feel like actually you don't see that a lot. Like you're like, oh, you have to have an uplifting. No, you don't, because most people, they'd be like, look at this ambiguous ending. Did he kill himself or not? Good luck figuring it out. I liked that, and like you said, Sergio, with Landon having to make that choice finally to take care of himself and things like that. I think everybody should make the choice to read this book. So,
also, I think with the ending, I think it's one of those, whichever way it goes, it's not about the ending. It's like The Sopranos, right? Yeah, the ending is that finale is ambiguous. But it's not about what happens at the end. It's the journey there, right? And what Landon is going through. And I think at the end of the day, whichever route he took, he's still making that choice in his head for change, for happiness, right? Yeah.
I mean, I would disagree with that, because the ending does matter here in terms of, let's say he had taken the pills and we had seen him swallow them and he falls to the floor and she finds his body. That distinctive. That's a completely different take than, oh, look, he actually cleaned himself up. He made the choice to continue living despite the voice in his head. That's a very powerful message and something that's needed, I think, especially, again, I struggle with my own mental health myself. I think that's really powerful to see. Whereas, oh, look, it's another person that off themselves, no matter how hard they fought it. That's we see it all the time. It's hard. So I agree the journey's so important, and that's the biggest part of why I like this book. But I do think the ending matters a lot in how you interpret the journey that we read.
Yeah, because I mean, the ending, in my interpretation, is it's the point of it, right? As Lauren said, he's making a choice, but to me, he's making a choice to accept his current life. Because the whole book's about, hey, look at this different life. Look at all the stuff that's not yours. It doesn't belong to you at all. You didn't earn it. You didn't do anything. You could just be given it. And he's making that choice to make that his life. Like all the stuff, he's making the choice to accept. He's accepting his past in terms of, like, we see what happened to his friends and his bandmates in terms of his choice and how it affected them. He's now accepted that. He's accepted his relationship with, falling apart with his wife. It's him. I think the whole point of it is it's him accepting his life, his decisions that led to that moment, and then him accepting the choice to stay and make it better, make it something that he's proud of, that he wants to keep living in. That's at least my interpretation. Because if it was any other way, to me, I don't think the story could work as well. Because it is about him wanting to be in his life, not in anyone else's.
But I think his life, kind of, right? Though, right? Pardon? I mean, that's the crazy part, right? It's an alternate. It's him, right?
But those are intrusive thoughts.
Yeah.
So if you know about mental health, intrusive thoughts, if for people that don't know, I guess, intrusive thoughts are just basically thoughts that you have that we feel like we shouldn't have or aren't helpful, that can hurt us, like lacking our self-confidence, saying, oh, I could have had this life. Why didn't I do better? Which is a lot what this guy thinks. So that could technically be another reality. But in this case, I don't think that's the framework we need to look at this in. Even though parallel dimensions are cool, it's more the mental health framework of, hey, dude, like Steve said, you made these choices and stuff, and you could have had a different life, but the fact of the matter is that didn't happen. But that doesn't mean you can't have a good life now. You can make the choice to get out, and that's super duper important there. And I mean, it's just a really cool book. I mean, we could talk for hours about this, but so good.
I will say, one of the best things is going into, a fresh read, first time, not hearing much about a book, and just being, very, pleasantly surprised, just, fully immersed and enjoying it. And for me, man, I enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed the read. This was a great book. Any final thoughts that you guys have about Parallels you want to let the audience know regarding Parallel and Jason Douglas and the creative team?
I would just say, for anyone who likes books that deal with these types of questions, these inner turmoils that people have, these character-driven struggles, because most of this book, it's all just character. It's all character-driven, and it's, you know, character having an existential crisis in a way too, dealing with depression and all of that stuff. If you're a reader who likes those interpersonal things, I think this book is one for you.
Lauren.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, especially the warning that was at the beginning of the video, if you're, you know, struggling with mental health stuff and, you know, can't read this material now, absolutely. But I think, you know, it helps if you stuck around long enough and heard that there is a good ending to it. So sometimes that helps people read stuff like this and that, oh, yeah, they're going to read some stuff that's intense and such, but hey, there is a good ending, so it's not just all dread. It's very well written. Like I said earlier, I was very nicely surprised, and I'm with you, Serge. Like, I went into this completely blind. I just opened up the PDF and said, all right, we're reading parallel. Like, I don't know what's happening. And I just want to say, too, that, yeah, I think the uplifting ending makes a lot of sense, too, because that, you know, you mentioned, Sergio, with the parallel fourth grade lesson continuing as a theme throughout the story, and it actually started with that, by the way. It had to end that way because that's how Jason Douglas very cleverly framed the story. He framed it around this, you know, little lesson that he expanded on throughout the story all the way till the end. Adam Ferris did a great job with the art, and, you know, the shading was super great. Made me enjoy the black and white a lot better. The layering with Justin Birch was great. And, you know, the cover colors with Lesley Atlansky were brilliant. And that cover is so simple, but so powerful to me.
It's great. It's great. Yeah. You know, parallels from Source Point Press, Jason Douglas, Adam Ferris, Justin Birch. I get 2 thumbs up, man. I'm digging it.
Yes.
And, you know, this video will be released before Baltimore Comic-Con later on this month, or I think towards the end of October. So once again, up for 2 Ringo Awards. So congratulations to the whole creative team, and good luck. You guys have got a fantastic book on your hands. You know, we can see why it's been nominated for Best Writer and Best Single Story Issue. You know, so good luck, guys, and thank you so much to Jason for sharing with us the review for this. You know, enjoyed it very much, and we want to hear from you guys. You know, check out Parallels, pick it up if you can, you know, order from your LCS or you know, I know it's available digitally on Source Point Press's website, and let us know what you think, you know, and you know, there's that ending, right? Again, we can have a discussion on it, I think, for all day, but yeah, I think that's it, you know. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this review, and we hope you enjoyed it. Like,
yes,
subscribe, ring that bell, right, guys?
Ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling that bell.
All right, my man.
Where can Serge? Where can the good people find us on the interwebs?
Sure. Yeah. Well, they can find me on Twitter, Instagram, insert name Inc., insert name Comics. Lauren, where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter, Instagram at friendlynvhd. It's below, and make sure you follow the House of Nerd Show's Twitter and Instagram too at House of Nerd Show.
Steve.
Yeah, you can find me at Stovepost on Twitter. And Sergio, if they want to find more content from us, or possibly even, I don't know, a live show that we do, where can they find that?
Oh, hey, by the way, guys, we do a weekly live show every Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern. And, you know, for any creators or artists out there, if you guys want to send us review copies, you can send them to houseofnerdshow@gmail.com. And I think that's about it, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys.